Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? It's Kunal here. Can you hear me? If you can, could you just say yes in the chat area? Hello? Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm just going to give everybody like another five minutes to settle in. Okay, 5 minutes, just 5 minutes to settle in to the webinar. I'm just going to set a few things up here. I am here. Okay. I'm here. Okay. Just let me know when. Okay. Right. I am going to begin at about 14:05. Okay. So in 3 minutes, time, just hang on. You could introduce yourself if you would like to. Hello, Charlie. How are you? Okay. Yeah, it's good. Welcome to the webinar. Okay. Hi, Judy. Yes, it's set to be epic, as I said. It starts in 2 minutes. Okay. Going to start in 2 minutes. Okay. All right, let's do this. I'm going to share my screen. Just going to move this here. You're going to be able to see me actually for a few seconds. This is me. Hello. So you're going to see me for a few minutes. I'm just setting everything up. Everything is good to go. We've got a minute to get into the juice of this. I'm pretty excited here. Okay. So you should be able to see. Hang on 1 second. I want this to actually, I want to share this screen. I'm just going to turn off disable while screen. Yeah. So you should be able to see my screen. So let me know if you could see my screen. Fantastic. You can. Okay. Right. So welcome everybody. Thank you for turning up for today's webinar. It's, as I said, set to be epic. I put this together. Let me just switch this around. Awesome. So I put this together for you guys so you pretty much will, what screen can you see? First things first. Okay, you can see, is the screen okay? Fantastic. Okay, right. So we're going to be talking about mobile user experience principles for e-commerce in 2017. You know, what mobile UX principles actually work in 2017. I'm just going to give you a brief info. I'm Kunal Campbell. I'm an e-commerce advisor to fast growth e-commerce businesses or ambitious e-commerce businesses. And I pretty much have one ethos, one core goal. My core goal is to improve and increase sales for businesses. And it could come in 3 key areas. One could be through acquisition, another could be through retention, which is one of the most important, and the other would be conversion rate optimization, right? Once you have all those blocks sorted, then you start to have referrals coming in, and you need to create the mechanisms for referral marketing. These are some of my clients I work with. I'm also an advisor to specific companies. I've been 12 years in marketing, and yeah, that's me. Let's get into the juice of things. These are a few places I've been published. And today's talk, we're going to be going through, oh, 1 second. 1 second. So we're going to be going through like mobile UX principles, okay? 1 second. I'm going to be talking about key templates, okay? I'm going to be talking about the homepage setup. I'm going to be talking about category pages. I'm going to be talking about product pages. I am not going to be talking about checkouts because checkouts, e-commerce mobile checkouts actually deserve a full webinar on its own. I'm also going to be talking about menu setup, and I'll schedule something, for checkouts later. I'm also going to be talking about search, and we're going to tie everything together. And once you take all of these pieces, you will improve the conversions. You have new insights to improve conversions in your e-commerce store, okay, for mobile traffic. Right, so why does mobile traffic actually matter? Well, the stats are ridiculous. Mobile traffic is now head on head with desktop, right? In many, many markets. In some markets, it's more mature. This is the UK, by the way, this graph. This is what happened on Black Friday, according to the postcode company, software company called PCA Predict. And what they managed, what they did, this is real-time data that was captured all through 2016 Black Friday. And you see the green graph up there? That's desktop. It peaked, over those hours between 8 in the morning, actually 9 in the morning, and then it died off by about 5 p.m. Right? Mobile is still kind of consistent, not as high, right? But it was significantly higher than tablets, right? So mobile is there to stay. It's here to stay. Here are another stats. The first is the smartphone. The first is the global market. So all in all, in Q3, according to Montate, 40% of traffic is coming from mobile across the world. In the US, it's about 45%. In the UK, interestingly, it's about 35%. But here's the thing. Conversion rates in the UK is 3%. Or in the US, it's just 1.15%. And I've had a look at some US sites, and they're not doing a terrific job at converting, mobile users, to be honest, right? Global is about 1.27, so slightly better than the US. So search engines typically see that 48% of mobile sessions, right, start with search engines. People typically just want to search. And if you look at the subcategories, 42% are searching for automotive, 41% for furniture, 38% for apparel and beauty. And then 33% just go straight to the branded websites, okay? They just type out the websites, addresses they know. It could be an Amazon, it could be a Walmart, it could be, a jet.com, whatever. They just type that in and they get through to the results. And then 26% are branded apps, right, when they're trying to get through to apps. So all in all, of 59% of orders, 40% of traffic coming from desktop, 59% are orders. With mobile, 12% of the 9% traffic are orders, and on tablets are orders, and then 30% of orders with 50% of traffic from mobiles are orders. Now, we clearly have a conversion problem. If 60% of orders are coming from desktops, and only 30% are coming from mobiles with 51%. Traffic, we have a conversion problem. However, we should also be aware of intent, because if I'm commuting, and I'm just doing research on board, I'm less likely going to make an impulsive purchase, unless if I'm persuaded, to do that. I'm going to talk a bit more about emotional triggers on mobile templates. These are another stats. Really, it's all about buyer intent. And buyer intent is highest on tablets, followed by computers or desktops, and then mobile. Okay, one other reason why we should be thinking about mobile first really is Google announced the fact that they will be using your mobile site as a primary source of indexing. So they're going to crawl your mobile site, gather the data, and put it in their index. So you really need to think about adopting a mobile first mentality. And if you're going to think about a mobile first mentality, right, just due to the fact that 90% of the time on mobiles are spent on apps, you need to try and deconstruct what makes apps really great and how can you mimic certain experiences, user experiences on apps on your desktop. Okay, on your mobile websites, on your mobile sites. How are you going to get a close to app experience on a mobile website? How are you going to get a close to app experience on your mobile store? Okay, that is the challenge. That is the real challenge. And I would suggest you Google this mobile app UX principles. It was put together by Google, right? And they're like a lot of very, very, very important points with regards to user experience from a user's perspective on mobile devices for apps. Now, we as e-commerce marketers can take a lot of tips, which is what I've done for this presentation, from app usage guides, UX guides such as this on our mobile sites we're managing. Okay, so definitely check that resource out. Another resource I would love you to check out is the iOS Human Interface Guideline. Very, very detailed. I'll go through a few guidelines from their site. Just Google iOS Human Interface Guideline. It's for mobiles. The first thing they tell you to do is the formatting of content. Create a layout that fits the screen on an iOS device. So if you're to sort of translate that, just create a layout that fits obviously the screen of a mobile, that fits a mobile screen, right? Another one was touch controls. You need to be aware of touch controls. Things like, pulling out dates. You could actually get some touch gestures via UI elements, basically. You could pull out. So if you're asking users to enter a date, there are very clever ways of adding a date. Use the native way to apps of adding dates to your mobile sites. This is just like basic stuff, right? Another thing is, hit target. You need to be looking at a minimum of 44, pixels. 44 is the magic word for buttons, and I'll say for the height, minimum of 44 points. And when you're designing buttons, generally it's always best to have an end-to-end button, rather than letting two buttons share a row. Most of the time, it's just best to have an entire row. If you think about the grid system, an entire row, on your screen for a button, and then you make it at least 44 pixels in height. So these are how people tend to hold, mobile phones. Obviously, for almost 50% of them use one hand, and they have the one-handed grip. And this one-handed grip is typically for right-handed people. Left-handed people also use the one-handed grip. Then there's about almost 40% of them would hold the phone, right, and use another hand to sort of move around. So it's kind of still almost like a one-handed grip, but one finger is in control. And notice it's the thumb, not necessarily a finger, and the other is just supporting, right? And off the back of that, you could almost say they're almost identical, and that's a good 80% of people using one finger to navigate around, a screen, pretty much. The other is the other is the two-handed grip, which is about 15%. I see a lot of teenagers doing that when they're texting. Right. So design for touch. Now, these are like the the touch areas, the easy to reach, the natural easy to reach, and the stretch areas on various phones. It's very important to have this in mind when designing interfaces. I would tell you some things in context of e-commerce shortly, but this is to bear in mind, that the lower down, the lower down on the phone, the easier it is to reach, right? And the further up, the more difficult it is to reach. But if you're having a support with the left hand, then you could easily just move ahead. It's not like you're not going to reach it, but it's going to take a bit more effort. Text size is important. Just make it legible. Always work on spacing. Don't condense stuff. Same thing with spacing. Very, very important. Resolution is also important. With Retina display, your logo would not appear really nice on if it's not 2x or 3x. It would appear blurry. Standard. Try and lay things out on a row by row basis, on mobile interfaces, and not clutter rows with too much information. Same thing. So if you notice that continue button, it just is an entire row, okay, as compared to something that's sharing a row with another element. Okay, so let's talk about a mobile site, a mobile interface, a mobile site, an e-commerce mobile site is categorized into, your e-commerce funnel basically starts off from your homepage, and then it trickles down to your category pages, product pages, which are your key money pages, I call them, and then you go to checkout, and that's it. Now, the two major navigational navigational functions on your mobile e-commerce site. One is search. If people get tired, of trying to find what they're looking for, people just want to search. People are heavily using search on mobile sites, but because usage is not consistent, people do get frustrated with search, and people do not always expect the best from search. So there's an opportunity there. And the other is your menu. It is super important to get your menu right, guys. Very, very important to get your menu right. So those elements, along with buttons and filters, we're all going to talk about them apart from the checkout, okay, today. So what are the homepage best practices? Well, this is an example of B&H, and one of the principles you want to adopt on your mobile site is simplicity, right? You want to put your best foot forward. You want to avoid using carousel sliders. You want to try and avoid using carousel sliders because you want to present the most important bits of information. I'm going to start from the top before I go into the bottom. Now, at the very top, you really want to be aware of the amount of real estate you're dedicating to your logo, to the breadcrumb navigation, the menu. It's not the breadcrumb navigation, but the hamburger menu. You want to pay attention to the amount of real estate space on that screen you're going to give to your shopping cart icon. And for some retailers, they put a profile icon. I'm not that enthused about a profile icon, to be honest. But it will be good if, when you're logged in, your name shows and you have a persistent login that does not necessarily expire after 999 days. If you set that up, when people are returning to your site and they see your name under that icon, they know that they're logged in, and it's just going to minimize the checkout process. So you can have the icon, but you need to be aware that you need to minimize the height space dedicated to the logo area. And you want to put your logo, you want to put your hamburger menu, and you want to put your shopping cart all on the same row level, okay? Under that or above that, you could put one of your KPIs, the fact that one of your key selling points, the fact that potentially maybe you do next day delivery, or you do, free shipping. Some retailers would put that on top just to remind people that that is what they do. That is the key selling point. That's a key value proposition. Again, you don't want to clutter that with too much information. Okay. Underneath the bar area, you definitely want to put an end-to-end search bar that ideally will float on the home page at the very least. So when people are scrolling down this page, they're scrolling down the home page, they see the search and they can just search for stuff. This is assuming your search is up to scratch. And I'm going to give you an example of what it takes to have a really good search interface. Now underneath that, you can have a hero image, just one, right? Just one hero image with the most important bits of information. You can have a more button instead of a carousel, right? A more button instead of a carousel under that image if you want to display some more information. So people could just click on that more, right? Show me more, and then it just reveals a bit more information. But on your homepage, you definitely want to put your most important categories on there in possibly a visual manner or an icon manner. I'm going to give you some examples. You want to make it, some retailers will go for a row by row, right? So you could go for a grid system. It really doesn't matter. But the key thing is, in a visual manner, you display maximum 2 per row, all of your most important categories, your primary categories. Okay, so that's the rest of that page you're looking at. Underneath all their categories, they put their deal zone because it's a very important thing. You could implement some personalization on your homepage. You can put a personalization widget which shows the most popular products, and you could personalize it to their session. If they're not logged in, then you could put the most popular, most likely to be bought products from your personalization engine. Or if they're logged in, then you put in the recommended or related products that particular customer is likely to buy. And then you want to structure things quite symmetric. If you look at the third image on the right, the links to all the other major sections are very, very symmetric, and you could change and toggle your currency and their social media icons there. They've done a very good job. B8 Photos on their mobile site. You should check this site out. Another example here is where you're a local site and you want to you have local branches. You definitely want to make sure people can select your local store. And I like what Home Depot have done here, where they have put a location icon so you can locate yourself and find your local store as quickly as possible. There are other elements which I don't agree with, like the 3 images there. You want to keep it very, very symmetric. 2 images, one on one side and one on the other. And you need to be aware. Speaking of which, I like what they've done here also. The fact that they've put the hamburger menu at the top right. Now, it's a hit or miss. In e-commerce, generally, on your e-commerce site, you will tend to have your logo on the left or the middle, and you'd have your basket always on the right on your desktop site, right? So a lot of users also assume that in a mobile site, you should have your shopping cart on the top right corner. It is possible. It is a very valid reason. However, we're not, that, the reach point of your menu is so important, because the menu is like menu and search, the more or less the dashboard or the navigational, I'd say navigational, the points, the navigational tools shoppers use to get to the products that they're looking for. So it is very important that they're easy to find. There's no hard and fast rule as to where to locate it, left or right, but it's important to note that if it's on the right, it's slightly easier to reach on a right-handed grip. This is Patagonia, and what they've done, as I said, you can see the symmetry there, where they've put in a grid, men's, women, Just notice the symmetry there. Top right is the shopping cart button, top left menu, very, 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 very clean. It's easy, it's minimal for people to find exactly what they're looking for. Row by row to sections, and below all that, so the third screen there is the bottom, which has other site links. So if you do phone calls, then you have to consider putting in an icon. If phone calls are very important to you, then you need to consider putting in an icon on your mobile nav. Now, what is the problem here? The big problem here is where they've placed their hamburger menu. It's captioned shop products, but it's not that obvious, right? It's stacked down, and it's a bit, for a user, you might take a few more seconds to find where the hamburger menu is. As I said, they're trying to, there are only so many icons you could put in a single row. They can't have put that hamburger menu on the top left, right? Because there's the login icon, there's the phone icon, and then there's the shopping cart icon. There's a lot going on here. So you need to think. I would have put perhaps that phone icon by that phone and move the hamburger to the top, okay? Just another way to display popular categories. It's clean. It breaks the 2 items per row rule, but it's nice and clean. I'm quite sure that each touch point is 44 pixels wide. It's another very clever way. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about menu best practices. For menu best practices, as I alluded to earlier, most shoppers expect your shopping cart to be, your shopping basket icon to be on the top right, and the top left is for the menu bar, right? Again, you could stack them up together, make it easier by putting the hamburger menu on the top right corner, so it's easy. It's up to you, really. But the key thing is this symmetry here is just fantastic. This symmetry here is fantastic. These guys have done a good job with regards to the positioning of the menu, their cart, and their logo. There's a lot of symmetry going on here. Another thing you want to definitely consider in your menu is giving your menu a background. Giving your menu, that's your hamburger menu, when it's clicked on, a very easy to stand out background. Now, why I'm saying this is its origins come from apps, Facebook app. If you remember the Facebook app before they made the changes, we're going to talk about the changes, and the Spotify app. You notice that when you click on the hamburger menu, there was a slide out feature that brought all the key elements with icons on the left, right? And people could just navigate to their news feed, to their contact list, messages, all that good stuff. But you notice that there was a really dark background, and the icons and the menu items came to light. E-commerce is a bit backwards. We'll talk about why, but try and give it a background. Try and give your menu, area a background. If you can get away with it, which I think AO.com do, you can put some icons, by each. It's not mandatory, but just giving it a background that stands out from the rest of the site, brings them to the fore and gives them legibility. Also notice the touch points. There's lots of spacing, line spacing above. If you look at sets, for instance, there's a lot of space above it and below it. If you look at home, there's a lot of space above it and below it. If you look at exclusive, same thing. Okay, you definitely want to do that. So give it a good background. Which brings me to how I think e-commerce can evolve. I think we need to start thinking as e-commerce marketers, as UX designers, as UI people. We need to start rethinking the position of the menu. If you look at Facebook back in iOS 7, which was 2015, changed up the menu bar. They moved it from the top left, which was back in 2014, 2013, and they brought it down. What they have now is called a tab bar. Now, what a tab bar does is it's a persistent list of your most important most important functions on a mobile app, right? And with the more, which is the menu, you see, a lot more, items, on there, a lot more options. But, in this case, Facebook's most important features are newsfeed, friends, messages, notifications, and then more reveals a lot more options. And I think, like, from an e-commerce standpoint, if that is the case, if we have that mobile mentality and we start to implement tab bars on our mobile sites, it'll just be a much more pleasant experience. But I would leave it to the experts, the UX experts, to dream up, if it's possible, HTML5, a solution for e-commerce websites. I think this is where the feature is going to go in the mobile web anyway. And what I'm trying to say to validate my point is, if you look at the natural points, the natural finger areas, as much as more is in the hard to reach area, it's at the lower part of a palm, and you can easily just pull out your thumb and still get to the menu. So you hold it with support with your left hand, you can easily go to your menu quite easily. Okay, so it's quite important to look at the evolution of Facebook. Notice in 2013 they had the menu at the top left. In 2015 they switched it to the menu at the top at the lower right. Same thing in 2016 with the update of marketplaces, which is quite important. So they took out messages, which obviously they now have a messaging app, and they replaced that messages with the marketplace icon. Just so you know. That's a much clearer photograph on there. It's very, 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 very interesting. So for the time being, just keep it consistent and give it a different background. It's so important, okay? This is what AO do. I would, you notice the icon sets on there. Very, very, very important. It helps, users just interact with this interface, so much quicker, so much easier. But one other thing I want to sort of bear in mind is what's called a slide out menu, right? When you click on the TV audio, that screen in the middle just slides out, right? And notice that the icon of the TV audio is retained in the same height, and it follows through in the new screen. It's just an overlay. Think about it as slides of the menu. And that's a nice way to, if you have a two-level, category, that's a very, very nice way to present. Sorry, if you have a two-level category structure, it's a nice way to present your menu. So you have your primary there on the left, and then when you click on each primary, it just slides out your secondary, categories. The other is using a multi-level slide, push menu. So let's imagine your website is as big as that of Legos, and it has 4 levels, 3, 4, 5, levels, your hierarchy. Well, you may want to first of all use a drop down, first. So if you look at sets was drop down, and then if you notice on themes, interest, and set homes, those have subcategories, and the subcategories just have a slide out. This is called a multi-level slide push menu, and I've put a link down there to some references. So it first of all compresses down like an accordion, and then it slides out for subcategories. Very important, okay? Next point I'm going to talk about is category page best practices. This is a very important page. Okay, so in your category pages, you definitely want to retain your search bar. And if possible, you want to make it float. I'll go a step further to say also make your sort filter, options float. Okay, in this case, because this website is such a big website and it's all about electronics, right? A lot of people want to compare electronics, they have a compare. So this is a very interesting, point they're making here. But in the case of most e-tailers, all you need is a sort on the one hand and a filter on the one hand. You want to avoid putting more than 2 elements per row, on an e-commerce site. Right? Don't place any image banners. It's all about products. Your category page in e-commerce is all about products. You don't want any distractions top of the full. All you're trying to do is present your products in the best possible way. Also notice the fact that they reveal the fact that you're looking at 1 out of 1 to 24 of 231 results. It's also important to let people know where they are, how many results they have to look through. So if they know they're looking at 231 results, they want to sort or they want to filter. Another point I wanted to make here are the psychological or the emotional triggers you can sort of, drive on category pages. If you notice, they have what they have here is they have the reviews. Okay, the reviews give social proof. They have the RRP, right, and the offer price, which shows the instant savings. Okay, notice they do not have an add to cart button or a shop now button because a lot of people want to view more results. Okay, they have the image on the left. I always prefer to just have one product per row, right? I don't want to just clutter it, with too many products. And you want to have obviously your title, and you want to have those emotional triggers. So that price, showing the retail price and the offer, actually shows just the value that they're getting. Okay, and the fact that there's a limited supply at this price shows urgency. And the fact that also drives the fear of missing out. If they're only limited, there's a need to act really quickly on this offer, and you do not want to miss out. So there's that FOMO effect, urgency, and you want to drive that value. The driving the value really is in the savings they get in the price. This is made.com. Again, notice the search. There's a filter there. Why I like this page is the fact that this is a sales page. It's a sales page. They not only have the sort and the filter, they also have the on sale now. That's like a drop down of the subcategories they have in the sales. Okay, so the next thing is I'm just trying to break down the emotional triggers on this Amazon listing, which you need to think about in your category pages. You must have product reviews. You must have product reviews. You must also deliver instant gratification. So the instant gratification, emotion, really, and urgency is the fact that this product is a prime product and is eligible for free UK delivery. Okay, you're going to get free UK delivery. It used to be free next day delivery, but it's free UK delivery. They're not going to, they're going to get it, for free. Well, then the other thing is the fact that there's scarcity. So only eight items left, right, in stock order soon. So there's a fear of missing, out. There's scarcity. You need to do it now. There's urgency. And obviously, as I said, the fact that they're showing the recommended retail price versus Amazon's offer price, there's instant customer value, which is the perceived benefits of the RRP and the perceived cost, which is your price. Here's another one. I think AO have failed here. They have offered features rather than benefits, right, on here. They've squeezed too much on this category page, way too much. You don't need to put this much information, on your category pages. But what they've done really well is the fact that they have their sort and their filter, which floats. They're really dynamic elements which float. Again, there are too many buttons. There's a more info button with an add to basket button. That's a no-no. You really want to make sure things are easy. I don't think they need the more info button. People just tap any area on that product to get to the product page. And to be honest, there's no need for an add to basket. People hardly make decisions off the back of viewing an item on category pages. They want to see, a product. Okay, so let's talk about product page best practices over the next 5 minutes. Number one element is that you must have your reviews. Put your reviews as prominently as possible to the top of the page as possible. Underneath the reviews, obviously, you need to have an image. We're not going to talk about the title. The title is pretty obvious. And make sure it's a carousel where you just, where people just a thumb friendly, carousel where people, view. Now you don't need to put obviously stack your reviews, the full reviews on top of, top of the fold. What you want to do is when you tap the review, it takes you, to the review section, which is potentially under the product descriptions. We're going to go through that later. One other thing is carousels. You can get very clever with carousels with regards to displaying, more information. So these are like tabs. These carousels are like tabs in this for this product page, and you're able to actually look at the specs, look at what's in the box, look at the accessories by just tapping each of those carousels, right? And the page does not necessarily reload, it just reveals information under each carousel, which is very, very clever. So obviously make sure you have your image carousel, you have your name, you have your your selection is very important, and then you have your add to cart. This is the structure for top of the fold. And try and aim to get your add to cart without having to scroll. But if that's the case, there's really not much of an issue, especially when you have selection options. But your add to cart must always be underneath your selection. Okay. Next is this is Gap. They have very detailed. They have to have this detailed, selection process. Where if your fit is tall, regular, petite, they've done it really well with information. So this is going to minimize returns because it's required. It's just going to have to minimize returns, right? Because it's so detailed. Okay, and they even have a link to their size guide, and that's an add to bag basket. And the add to bag basket again is what? End to end. They're always end to end. Another point I wanted to make here was notice the add to cart there, and the fact that you could drop down quantity, on the left. Elroy do a fantastic job with showcasing selection, right? Those are the colors there, and the checkout button. Now, because they have very limited products, and they've probably viewed that the fact that most people buy a single item from their site, rather than having add to cart, they just have a checkout. So this takes you straight to checkout because they probably put this in due to the limits. So if you're like a one product business, or you only sell very few products, then you might want to consider having a checkout button, which just takes you straight to the checkout page. So below your description, where I'm going to talk about, you should definitely have your related products. Customers also bought, customers also viewed. Well, make sure it's a carousel. It's a carousel, so people can just swipe and swipe and swipe. So this is what you do after under your basket. You try and put your product description on there. And you obviously make it open on default. So look at the Bella Royal. So they have the features there, your feature set, key feature sets, and every other supporting data is put in a carousel with a plus button. Same thing. One other thing you want to do is reviews. Obviously, you want to highlight the reviews section. You want to bring it to the fore. These guys have used green. You could use your palettes, but just make sure your reviews actually stand out. With regards to no scrolling, notice what May.com have done within this single scroll. Because they only have color selection, they were able to get their buy today button on there. They're experimenting with text on their button. And also notice on the left their carousel, their drop down, accordion. What's it called for content, for delivery, for descript dimensions and product details. So remember, end-to-end buttons matter. The best solution is to have core features at the screen's middle, where you can tap your left or right, thumb. That said, those red areas are red areas, and that's why e-commerce is tough. However, you can definitely put the top right is definitely better reaching, easier reaching than the top left. And also the lower areas. and also make sure your target points are 44 pixels. On the final note, I'm going to talk about search. Basically, the core thing about search is, first of all, make sure it's auto-suggest. Okay, just make sure it's always auto-suggest. Whenever you're in a category, right, make sure that when you're searching, it has a sub option like these guys have to search within that category. There has to be context within your search. And if you're outside of that, outside of a category page, say you're on the home page or you're on a product page, then you could use auto suggest to guide the users. There's a very, very clever tool called Algolia. It's a fantastic filter and sort based. It's a filter based search auto suggest plugin. You could use them on a Magento site. I'm not sure if they're on Shopify or BigCommerce. Okay, so with that in mind, I would like to end this presentation, and I hope you guys, had some value. You definitely must have had some value. So do you have any questions? Any questions, guys? I can't seem to see any questions. Okay. If there are no questions, I will end this presentation. Thank you so much for taking your time out to being part of this. And until the next webinar, guys, have a fantastic one. Bye-bye for now.